I knew something was wrong the moment I heard the crunch of gravel under tires. Fast, angry, reckless. My street was usually quiet at night, the kind of suburban calm where even dogs barely barked. But that sound, it carried history. It carried childhood fear. It carried my parents. I was in the kitchen, reheating leftover pasta, when fists slammed against my front door so hard the wood shuddered. I dropped the bowl. It shattered across the tile, but the only thing I heard was my mother's voice, shrill and venomous, the way it always sounded when she'd made up her mind about who the villain was. "Open this door, Emily. You owe us." Owe them? After 5 years of silence? After they disowned me at 22 for refusing to sacrifice my future to help my sister clean up her endless messes? After they left me homeless for 8 months because I wouldn't sign a predatory loan? And now they were back, without warning, without apology, without an ounce of shame. I took a shaky breath and approached the door. Through the peephole, I saw them, my mother red-faced and wild-eyed, my father gripping something long and dark in his hand, a baseball bat, and another one leaning against his leg. My stomach dropped. I didn't even unlock the door. "What are you doing here?" My mother pressed her face close to the door like she could push through it. "Your sister's debt is at $150,000. $150. And if she doesn't pay by the end of the month, they're taking her to court. You have a house. You're going to sell it." "No," I said, voice trembling but firm. "I'm not selling anything, and you haven't spoken to me in years." My father slammed the bat against the porch railing. "We gave you everything growing up. You cut me off, and I rebuilt alone. You're being selfish. Open this door." I stepped back. "Leave. Now. Before I call someone. Try it. See what happens." The bat hit the door once, twice. Boom, boom. The sound vibrated through my bones. I ran to the back of the house, grabbed my phone, and dialed 911 with shaking fingers. "I need police. My parents are trying to break in." Before the operator could respond, I heard it, the unmistakable crack of splintering wood. They weren't trying anymore. They were succeeding. The front door gave way with a horrible groan. Cold November air rushed inside, carrying leaves, frost, and the past I worked so hard to escape. "Where is she?" my mother yelled as they stepped into my foyer like invaders. I ducked into the hallway and watched them stomp through the house. My mother kicked over my shoe rack. My father swung the bat at a framed print on the wall, smashing it to the floor. Glass scattered across the hardwood like glitter. My chest tightened with a panic I hadn't felt since childhood, the kind I thought therapy had cured. "Sell the damn house," my father roared, striking the coffee table. The legs cracked, collapsing one side like a wounded animal. "You will fix this." Fix what? Their decisions? My sister's irresponsibility? The generational mess I refused to inherit? They kept screaming about loyalty, obligation, blood, but my mind drifted, numb, detached. I built this place from nothing. 2 jobs, sleeping in my car some nights, skipping meals, crying in public bathrooms. I turned my pain into stability, and now they were in my living room, destroying it without a second's hesitation. My mother grabbed my lamp and threw it against the wall. Shards showered the floor. "This will teach her. She'll learn." Lights flashed outside, blue and white, strobing across the snow. My father froze. "What the—" My mother whispered, "The police! Emily called the police!" They ran toward the back window, panic overtaking rage, but before they could escape, a firm voice shouted from outside, "This is the police! Come out with your hands where I can see them." My parents stood in the ruins of my hard-earned life, breathing hard, bats still in their hands, faces shifting from fury to dread. And then, for the first time in 5 years, my phone lit up with my mother's name, calling, begging. "Emily," she sobbed, through the door and through the phone at the same time. "Sweetheart, help us! Please, please!" I stood in the hallway, surrounded by the wreckage of my hard-earned life, the cold air still creeping through the broken doorway. And I didn't move. I didn't speak. I didn't save them. Not this time. Not ever again. The officers were seconds from entering, and my parents were seconds from consequences they created with their own hands. And as the last lamp flickered out and the flashing lights bathed the walls in blue, I realized something. This time, I wasn't the scared daughter. I was the witness. And the witness doesn't protect the criminals. Not anymore.
The officers entered fast, 3 of them, boots heavy against the fractured wood of my doorway. My parents dropped their bats immediately. The moment metal hit the hardwood, something in my chest loosened for the first time all night. "Step back and keep your hands visible," one officer commanded. My parents obeyed. Just like that. All that rage, all that power they wielded over me my whole life, it evaporated under a stranger's uniform. I stood in the hallway, numb, watching the scene unfold with strange detachment. My mother's face was streaked with mascara. My father's jaw twitched like he wanted to argue, but his fear swallowed the impulse. One officer approached me gently. "Ma'am, are you hurt?" Hurt? Not physically. Emotionally? That was a decades-long injury. "I'm okay," I whispered. "Just shaken." He nodded. "We need a statement, and we need to document the damage before we let anyone move around." He led me toward the dining table. Well, what used to be the dining table. Now it was half covered in splintered wood, broken glass, dirt from their shoes, and my own disbelief. Behind me, an officer read my parents their rights. "You are under arrest for breaking and entering, property damage, and making threats of violence." My mother gasped, like she was the victim. "But she's our daughter." "That doesn't exempt you," the officer replied. My father finally snapped. "This is a family matter." "No, sir," the officer said calmly. "It became a criminal matter the moment you forced entry and caused destruction." I sat down slowly, breathing through the tremor still running through my hands. The officer speaking to me placed a recorder on the table. "Tell me everything from the beginning." So I did. I told him about the pounding on the door, the threats, the bats, the years of estrangement, the demand that I sell my house for my sister's debt, how they smashed my furniture, how I felt trapped in my own home. Halfway through the statement, I realized my voice didn't shake anymore. When I finished, he clicked off the recorder. "You did the right thing calling us. This is serious, and none of it is your fault. None of it is your fault." I hadn't heard those words in 27 years. As they finished photographing the damage, I heard muffled arguing from the front yard. My mother's voice rose above the others. "Emily, tell them to stop, please." I didn't go outside. I didn't even stand. I just listened as the officers guided them into separate police cars. Metal doors shut, engines rumbled, tires crunched, and then silence. No shouting, no footsteps, no threats. Just the November wind pushing through the broken doorway. For the first time in childhood, my house didn't feel like something that could turn against me at any moment. It felt like mine. An officer approached again. "We can board your door tonight. A contractor we work with is already on the way. You won't have to stay somewhere else unless you want to." The thought of a hotel bed and quiet walls made my eyes sting, but I shook my head. "I'll stay. I want to stay." He nodded. "We'll be here until everything is secure." While they worked, I walked through my damaged living room. My bookshelf was knocked sideways, my art prints lay shattered. A plant I'd kept alive for 4 years, one of the few living things I'd nurtured successfully, was crushed beneath one of the bats. Looking at the chaos they left behind, I felt something new rise inside me. Not grief, not panic. A strange, clean anger. One that didn't burn. It sharpened. I took photos. Every dent, every broken item, every shattered piece of glass. Evidence. Proof. A record of the night I finally broke free. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Voicemail. Emily, this is Aunt Linda. Your parents called me from the station. They said they just came to talk. Honey, can you please get them out? They're scared. I deleted it without listening to the rest. Another message lit up. My sister. This one I opened out of morbid curiosity. What did you do? They were there because of me. Fix it right now. I laughed. Actually laughed. A small, incredulous, almost disbelieving sound from the bottom of my tired lungs. Their cycle, the manipulation, the guilt, the blame, was still spinning. They just weren't dragging me with it anymore. When the contractor finished boarding the door, he handed me a temporary key and wished me a calm night. The officers left last, reminding me I could call any time. And then I was alone. Not the lonely kind of alone, the peaceful kind. I made tea, sat on the one intact chair left, let the steam warm my face. My hands finally stopped trembling. I thought the quiet would crush me. Instead, it made room. Room to breathe, room to think, room to realize I wasn't powerless anymore. My parents were in custody. My sister's debt was her own. And for the first time in my life, their chaos couldn't reach me. But peace is a strange thing when you've lived without it for so long. It doesn't stay silent. It asks questions. And mine was simple. What happens now that the worst has already happened and I survived it? Tomorrow would bring consequences, decisions, calls from detectives, maybe even court. But tonight was just mine. And as I stared at my boarded-up door and the ruins around me, I felt the truth settle like snow outside. This wasn't the end. It was the first real beginning of my life.
My parents were still screaming when the officer separated them. My mother kept insisting, "She owes us! She owes us!" My father pointed at the ruins of my living room like it was my fault he had smashed it. Meanwhile, I stood outside on the porch, arms wrapped around myself, watching the blue and red lights flicker against the broken window. I felt strangely detached, almost floating, like my brain had decided to protect me from feeling too much at once. Officer Hale finally approached me. "Ma'am, I need to confirm something," he said gently. "Your parents claim they have a right to be inside this home. They say it's a family property." I let out a tired breath. "It's not, and it hasn't been for almost 3 years." His brows lifted. "Who owns the home?" "My best friend. She bought it, and I rent it from her. The deed is in her name. My parents don't have any legal connection to it." He wrote that down, nodding slowly. "So they forced their way into private property they do not own." "Correct. And caused significant property damage." "Yes." He looked back at my parents, now quieter but still visibly furious and desperate. And for the first time since I was a teenager, I felt something I never expected. Power. Not revenge, not cruelty, just power. The power of knowing they couldn't take anything from me anymore. The officer continued. "They also claim you owe them a family obligation. Something about a debt?" I closed my eyes briefly. "My sister Emily owes $150,000. They want me to sell my house to bail her out.
I gestured around the destroyed living room. When I wouldn't, this happened. He let out a low whistle. That's not an obligation. That's manipulation. The word landed like a stone in the center of my chest. I had spent years trying not to call it that, trying not to label my childhood, trying not to admit what it really was. But hearing it from someone outside my family, someone with no stake in our history, cracked something open. Then Officer Hale asked the question I knew was coming. Do you want to press charges? My heartbeat thudded. Behind him, my father's jaw clenched. My mother's eyes widened, and for a second, just a second, I saw fear. Real fear. Not the fear of consequences, the fear of losing control over me. I swallowed hard. My throat ached. My voice broke. Not because I felt guilty, but because this was the first time in 5 years that any choice I made would truly be about me. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I almost ignored it, but when I glanced down at the screen, my breath caught. Emily calling. Of course she'd call the second things stopped going her way. I stepped aside and answered. Her voice burst through the speaker, frantic and breathless. Please tell them not to arrest Mom and Dad. They did it for me, okay? They're scared. They're under so much pressure. Emily, I said slow and cold. They broke into a house that's not mine and destroyed it with baseball bats. That's because you wouldn't help, she snapped. You know I can't go to jail. They said they'll take the dealership if I don't pay. They said I'll lose everything. And that's my problem? Because. There was silence. A tight, resentful silence. Then she whispered, because you're the only one who ever had it easy. I laughed. I couldn't help it. A hollow, disbelieving laugh. You think I had it easy? Emily, our parents cut me off. They abandoned me. They left me homeless. You stayed. You kept everything. You were their favorite. Then you owe them, she cried. There it was. The truth. The root of everything. Not love, not family, not duty. Ownership. They believed they owned me. I pulled the phone away from my ear and hung up without another word. Officer Hale watched me quietly. So, what's your decision? I looked through the broken doorway, at the shards of glass on the floor, the splintered wood, the torn cushions. And then I looked at my parents, and for the first time, I didn't see parents. I saw adults who made choices. Adults responsible for their own actions. Adults who thought I couldn't stand without them. They were wrong. I turned back to the officer, voice steady and clear. I want to file a full report. My mother gasped. My father cursed under his breath. Emily called again and again, my phone buzzing angrily in my hand. But I didn't look back. Not anymore. Because this wasn't about revenge. This was about finally closing the door they had slammed in my face 5 years ago. The police stayed for 2 more hours, documenting every shattered lamp, every cracked frame, every ripped cushion. My parents sat on the curb in handcuffs, no longer shouting, just stunned, as if they were finally realizing this wasn't one of their family disagreements they could smooth over with guilt. This was real. This was legal. This was happening. I stood inside the doorway, arms folded, watching the officers photograph the wreckage. My best friend and landlord, Zoe, arrived halfway through. She froze in the middle of the living room, eyes wide. Holy hell, she whispered. They did all this? Yeah,
I said softly. She walked through the room slowly, taking it in. The toppled TV, the slashed couch, the spider-webbed window. Then she came back and hugged me hard, her voice trembling. "You didn't deserve this. Not now, not ever." Her support almost made me cry, but I swallowed it back. There wasn't space for tears. Not yet. An officer approached us. "Miss Sullivan," he said, referring to Zoe, "as the homeowner, we'll need your statement as well." Zoe nodded vigorously. "Absolutely, whatever you need." My parents looked over at her then, realizing, maybe for the first time, that the house was really not mine. That destroying it didn't punish me. It punished someone outside their logic, outside the family hierarchy they worshipped. Their plan had failed the moment they picked up those bats. After statements were taken, the police guided me to the porch. "We are transporting them now," Officer Hale said. "Charges will be processed tonight. You will be contacted by the district attorney within a few days." My mother's voice cracked. "Sweetheart, please, this is all a misunderstanding." I didn't respond. My father pushed forward. "You think you're really going to get away with this? You think you can stand there after abandoning your family?" I turned away and walked back into the house. His words didn't stick anymore. I once thought I'd feel guilty watching them being driven away. Instead, I felt something else. Relief. Zoe exhaled. "Well, damn." I let out a shaky laugh. "Yeah." She glanced at the broken door. "You're staying with me tonight. No argument." I nodded. I didn't have the energy to fight that. We packed a small bag and left. The house taped off while forensics wrapped up. As Zoe drove us to her apartment, she kept glancing at me. "You okay?" "I don't know," I admitted. "It doesn't feel real. Because you've never let yourself see them clearly. Tonight forced you to." Her words settled deeply. She wasn't wrong. By the time we reached her place, exhaustion hit me like a wave. I hadn't eaten since breakfast, but food felt unimportant. My body was too heavy with adrenaline crash. Zoe made tea and set it beside me on the couch. "You want talk or you want silence?" "Silence," I whispered. So she sat with me in comfortable quiet, not demanding, not guilt-tripping, not making everything about her, just present. It reminded me how foreign, gentle love felt compared to what I grew up with. After 10 minutes, my phone vibrated again. I expected Emily, but instead, it was an unknown number with a voicemail notification. I played it. A shaky, breathless voice filled the room. "Hi, this is Detective Marcus from the County Sheriff's Office. We need to speak with you regarding an additional complaint involving your parents. Please call us back as soon as possible." My stomach dropped. "What now?" Zoe whispered. I replayed it twice, trying to pick apart the tone. It wasn't routine. It wasn't procedural. It was urgent. I called back immediately. After a short wait, the detective picked up. "Ms. Lawson." "Yes. This is Detective Marcus. Thank you for calling. We need to inform you of something important about your parents' situation." My pulse quickened. "What happened?" There was a pause. A long, deliberate pause. Before he continued. "When searching your parents' vehicle during booking, officers discovered several documents tied to financial activity under your name. These documents appeared to involve significant amounts of debt and credit applications." My blood ran cold. "What?" I whispered. Zoe sat up straighter beside me. Detective Marcus continued, "We believe your identity may have been used without your consent. We're launching an investigation, but you need to check your accounts immediately." My hand shook as I hung up.
identity theft, 5 years of estrangement, their desperation, the entitlement, the rage when I said no. It all made sickening sense. I looked at Zoe, whispering, "Oh my God, they didn't just break into the house. They've been living off me, behind my back, for years." She covered her mouth, horrified. And before I could say anything else, my phone buzzed again. Emily. Calling. 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 Not stopping. Zoe whispered, "Don't answer." But something in my gut told me I had to. I picked up. Emily's voice came through, ragged and panicked, nothing like the entitled whining from earlier. "Please, you have to help them. You don't understand. If you don't..." She choked on a sob. "I think Mom did something really, really bad."
For a second, I thought I misheard her. Emily never sounded scared. Annoyed, entitled, defensive? Sure. But this voice, small, shaking, terrified, made my spine go rigid. "What do you mean?" I asked slowly. She panicked," Emily whispered. "After the police took them, she told me something. She said she couldn't let everything come out. She said she did what she had to do." My pulse hammered. "Emily, what did she do?" A strangled breath came through the line. "I think Mom opened accounts in your name. A lot of them. Years worth. And she's been using them to keep the house afloat, keep Dad's business running, pay off my student loans, everything. And now the investigators are asking questions and she's losing it." The room tilted. My mother. My own mother. The woman who used to tell me, "You're supposed to sacrifice for family," had been sacrificing me the whole time. She had turned my identity into her personal bank. Zoe whispered, "Hang up, put it on speaker." I did. Emily continued, sobbing harder. "Mom, didn't mean to hurt you." "That's the problem," I yelled. "She never thinks she hurts me. She only thinks she has the right." Emily went silent. For the first time in years, she didn't have a comeback. I softened my voice. You called me 5 hours ago screaming that I ruined everything. You only called back because you're scared, not because you care." "That's not true." "It is," I said gently. "You love Mom and Dad, I get that, but you expect me to burn my entire life to save them? That's what family does," she whispered weakly. "No, that's what they taught us family does, but it's wrong." There was a trembling pause. Then Emily said the quietest thing I ever heard from her. "I don't know how to live without them telling me what to do." Zoe and I exchanged a look. It wasn't manipulation. It wasn't guilt tripping. Emily sounded like a child realizing the monsters under her bed were real. I said softly, "You don't have to lie for them. You don't have to carry their choices. What if everything falls apart?" "It already has." Silence. Long, painful silence. Then Emily said the quietest thing I ever heard from her. "I'm sorry, okay? I'm so sorry. I didn't know they were doing this. I didn't know." Before she could finish, a loud banging erupted on her end. Emily screamed. My heart flew into my throat. "Emily, what was that?"
Mom, Mom, stop! I'm on the phone. A muffled voice shouted something intelligible, then another bang, something breaking. Emily, get out of the house now. I can't. She locked the door. Emily. Zoe grabbed my arm. Tell her to climb out a window. Emily, listen, I said urgently. You need to leave right now. A window, the back door, anything. I'm trying. She. And then the line cut. Dead. Disconnected. No. I redialed straight to voicemail. Zoe stood up. We need to call 911 now. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped my phone. I dialed immediately and explained everything. The break-in, the violence, the identity theft, the call cutting out. The dispatcher said, officers are being sent to the residence right now. Stay by your phone. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Zoe squeezed my shoulder. Hey, breathe. But I couldn't. My mother had always been controlling, manipulative, guilt-obsessed, but this was something else entirely. This was unhinged. This was desperate. This was dangerous. Time slowed. Every minute felt like an hour. Then, 30 minutes later, my phone finally rang. County Sheriff's Department, a stern voice said, we're at the residence now. I swallowed hard. Is Emily okay? Another pause, a heavy one. Then the officer said, we need you to come down immediately. We found something at the scene, something you're going to want to see for yourself.
The drive to my parents' house felt like moving through wet cement. Zoe insisted on coming with me, gripping the steering wheel like she could will the car to move faster. My mind kept replaying Emily's scream, the crash, the sudden deadline. By the time we turned onto my childhood street, police lights painted the houses in frantic red and blue. Officers moved across the lawn like a scene from a crime show, flashlights sweeping over everything. My heart clawed at my ribs. An officer waved us forward. Mrs. Lawson? Yes, I said, my voice barely there. He guided us toward the front porch. Your sister is safe. She's shaken, but unharmed. My knees nearly buckled with relief. Where is she? She's in the squad car. She asked for you. But the officer's expression shifted. Before you see her, there's something we discovered inside that you need to be aware of. Zoe tightened her grip on my arm, bracing me. The officer led us through the front door, or what was left of it. The living room was wrecked worse than I'd remembered from years past. Papers, drawers, boxes, broken frames, everything was overturned. But it wasn't the mess that made my breath stop. It was the binder. A thick, organized binder sitting on the coffee table, neatly placed there by police, labeled in black marker, Sarah Lawson, financial records. My name, not my mother's handwriting. The officer flipped it open. Inside were folders, labeled year by year. 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024. Each tab stuffed with bank statements, loan applications, credit card approvals. My name appeared over and over and over. I felt sick. The officer explained calmly, these documents were found hidden behind a false panel in your parents' closet. A false panel? They had literally built a hiding place for their crimes.
My voice cracked. All of that is in my name? Yes, he said. Every account, every loan, every line of credit. And that's not all. He turned a page and revealed something even worse. A signed application, a large business loan. Amount, $112,500. Applicant, Sarah Lawson. Co-signed by Michael Lawson, my father. My stomach twisted so hard I had to grab Zoe's arm. I never signed that, I whispered. We know, the officer said, but these documents, some of them show extremely detailed forging. Whoever did this was skilled, practiced, and methodical. My mother. My father. Years of practice. Years of using my name like a personal credit card. Zoe's eyes filled with rage. They didn't just steal from you. They built a whole fake version of your life. My throat closed. Why would they do this? The officer looked at me with a painful sort of sympathy. Because you were the only one with clean credit. I leaned on the back of a chair for support. I had tried so hard to build a life away from them, worked 2 jobs, saved every penny, protected my peace. And while I was rebuilding myself from the outside, they were draining me from the inside. The officer cleared his throat. There's more. We also found a voicemail on your mother's phone, recorded earlier today. He pulled out a device and pressed play. My mother's voice came through, frantic, breathless, spiraling. They're catching on. The banks are calling. If she doesn't step in, we're done. I won't go to jail for this. I won't lose everything because she abandoned us. If she won't help, she'll leave me no choice. Zoe grabbed my hand. Oh my God. The officer paused the recording. Based on this, we believe your mother was preparing to flee with whatever money she could access through your accounts. I felt like the floor dropped out beneath me. So the break-in at Zoe's house wasn't rage. It was panic. My mother had been cornered, and when she was cornered, she was dangerous. The officer closed the binder. We're recommending a full identity theft case to the DA. Given the scale, this is considered a major felony investigation. I swallowed hard. Where is she? He hesitated. She's being held, but she's refusing to speak to anyone except you. A sharp chill ran through me. Zoe instantly snapped, No, absolutely not. She's not talking to her. But the officer raised a hand. You're not obligated to. She has no rights to demand contact, but before you decide, you should speak with your sister. She's been asking for you since we arrived. He led us out to the squad car. Emily sat inside, wrapped in a foil blanket, mascara streaking down her face. She looked small, like the scared version of her I only heard on the phone once before. She lifted her head when she saw me. Sarah? She whispered, tears spilling over. I'm so sorry. I didn't know it was this bad. I didn't know she'd hidden all this. I didn't know her voice cracked again. Zoe stayed behind,
arms crossed, glaring. I knelt beside Emily. "You're not in trouble." "I should be," she sobbed. "I helped them. I didn't know, but I still helped. I believed everything they said about you." "Emily," she shook her head. "They told me you abandoned us. They said you didn't care. They said you were selfish. They said you owed them. But you know what Mom told me tonight?" I braced myself. "She said she wished you'd never been born because then she would have had no one to blame." My breath caught. That sounded exactly like her. Terrifyingly so. Emily wiped her nose. "She wants to talk to you. She says you're the only one who can fix this." I closed my eyes, steadying myself. Then I whispered, "Emily, I'm not fixing this." Her face crumbled. Not in anger, but deep, painful understanding. "I know," she said. "I just wanted to hear you say it." Before I could respond, an officer approached. "Mrs. Lawson, your mother is asking again. Do you want to see her?" I exhaled slowly. Every part of me screamed no. But another part, deeper, older, knew if I didn't face her now, she would find another way back into my life. And I was done with shadows. I nodded. "Take me to her."
They led me down a narrow hallway inside the station, the walls painted that dull government gray that somehow makes even the air feel tired. Zoe wasn't allowed back here, so she waited in the lobby, pacing like she might burn a hole in the linoleum. My footsteps echoed. With every step, my stomach tightened, not with fear exactly, but with a strange mixture of dread and clarity. I wasn't going back to being the daughter who made excuses. I wasn't here to comfort her. I wasn't here to smooth things over. I was here to look the truth in the eyes. The officer opened a door and motioned me inside. The fluorescent lights hummed. The air smelled faintly of metal and cold coffee. My mother sat at the metal table, hands cuffed in front of her. Her hair was disheveled, her blouse wrinkled, mascara smudged from where she'd wiped tears or maybe tried to. She looked older than I remembered, but her eyes were the same. Sharp, calculating, focused entirely on me. "Sarah," she breathed, like a prayer of relief. "Oh, thank God." I didn't sit. She frowned. "You're just gonna stand there?" "I'm fine here." Her jaw tightened for a split second, the first crack in her mask. Then she forced a soft, trembling smile. "Listen, sweetheart, this is all going too far. We can fix this, okay? The officers misunderstood, your father overreacted, Emily is being dramatic. You know how she is." I didn't respond. She gestured to the seat across from her. "Please, sit. Let's talk like family." I shook my head. Her smile dropped instantly. The switch flipped. Her voice hardened. "Fine, stand, but listen carefully. You need to tell them everything was a misunderstanding. You need to tell them you authorized the accounts. You need to tell them we didn't break into that house." I stared at her, stunned by how fast the entitlement surfaced. Her voice grew sharper, faster, almost frantic. "You need to fix this, Sarah. You owe us that much after everything we've done for you. You think your life magically put itself together? No, we held you up. We sacrificed." "Stop."
The word cut through her rambling. She blinked, startled. I stepped closer, not fearful, but clear, grounded, steady. I didn't sacrifice for you, I said quietly. You sacrificed me. She flinched. What? You used my name for debt. You forged my signature. You built secret accounts. You hid them behind a wall. You took money out of loans with my credit. You risked my future. Her nostrils flared. I did what I had to do to save this family. No, you did what you wanted. And you expected me to clean up behind you forever. She leaned forward, eyes narrowing. You think you're better than us now? You think you can run off and build your fancy new life? Act like we didn't raise you? Act like we don't matter? You cut me off, I reminded her. You told me I was on my own. I took you at your word. That wasn't supposed to be permanent. You were supposed to come crawling back, apologize, realize you needed us. I actually laughed, a short, humorless sound that seemed to stun her. She stared. What's funny? You really believe that, don't you? You really think I needed you, all while you drained me behind my back? She slammed her cuffed hands against the table, eyes blazing. We are your family! For the first time in my entire life, that word meant nothing coming from her. I finally sat, not because she asked, but because I wanted her to see that I wasn't afraid. You want me to lie for you. You want me to take the fall. You want me to erase every crime you committed. You will, she hissed, or you'll regret it. There it was, the real her, the core of it all. A threat, not a plea, not a mother's fear. Control. Always control. I don't respond to threats anymore. Her face twisted. You think Emily won't pay for this? You think your father won't lose his job? You think this family can survive if you walk away? It already didn't survive. You just didn't notice. She opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. Sarah, listen to me. I was trying to fix things. Your father made some mistakes. So you stole from me? She swallowed. I needed resources. You needed a victim, I corrected. Her tears finally came, but they were the wrong kind. They weren't the tears of guilt or apology. They were tears of fear that her power was slipping, tears of a woman watching her control dissolve. You're throwing your family to the wolves, she whispered. No, I'm stepping out of the wolf's den. Before she could respond, the officer tapped on the door. Time's up. She jerked her head up, eyes wild. Sarah, you can't leave me like this. You can't. But I was already standing, and for the first time ever, walking away from her didn't feel like betrayal. It felt like freedom.
Zoe rushed to me the moment I entered the lobby. How did it go? Are you okay? I nodded faintly. It needed to happen. Before Zoe could say anything else, Emily approached from the opposite side of the room, escorted by an officer. Her face was red, eyes swollen. Sarah? She whispered. I braced myself. Emily stepped forward, voice shaking. I told them everything. I stared. What? I told the detectives about the accounts, the forged signatures, the loans, everything Mom and Dad did. I told them I wasn't part of it, but I didn't stop them. I told the truth. Her lower lip trembled. I think Mom hates me now. I exhaled, softened. She doesn't hate you. She's scared. She should be. They both should. A moment passed, the first honest moment between us in years. Then Emily swallowed hard. They're talking about arresting Dad again. They said there may be federal charges. They said this is huge. She looked up at me, terrified. Sarah, what happens now? I stared at my sister,
My complicated, messy, hurting sister, and felt the weight of an answer I didn't have. But before I could speak, the detective approached us urgently. "Miss Lawson, both of you need to come with me." "Why?" I asked. He held up a folder filled with documents just pulled from evidence. "We found another account." My stomach clenched. He continued, "And this one? This one has over $150,000 in withdrawals made just this month." Emily gasped. Zoe grabbed my hand, and I whispered, "What did they do now?"
The detective led us into a smaller conference room, the kind with a long table, mismatched chairs, and a single buzzing light overhead. The folder in his hand looked too thin to contain something as massive as $150,000 worth of destruction, yet the tension in his shoulders said it all. Emily's breathing quickened beside me. Zoe's grip on my hand tightened. The detective set the folder down. "Ms. Lawson," he said, looking at me first, "this new account was opened in your name." My heart stuttered. "However," he continued, "you didn't sign for it. The signature on the application form is identical to the handwriting used on the documents your parents forged 5 years ago." I felt the room tilt, but this time, not out of shock, out of exhaustion. "They did it again," I whispered. Emily sank into a chair, burying her face in her hands. "Oh my God, Mom and Dad seriously thought they could pull this off again? They opened an account this month?" The detective nodded grimly. "And not small withdrawals, large ones, repeated transfers. Some of the money went straight to cash. Some went to accounts overseas." I blinked. "Overseas?" "Yes," he said, "which means this may no longer be a state-level case." A cold ripple passed through the room. "Federal?" Zoe asked. He nodded once. A heaviness filled my chest, but underneath it, something steadier grew. A strange, solid calm. Of course this happened. Of course they escalated. People who thrive on control don't stop when you draw a boundary. They push harder, louder, more desperately. And my parents were no exception. The detective pulled out a sheet of paper, a printed list of transactions. "This account was opened 2 weeks ago, 24 hours after you refused to give your parents money for Emily's debt." Emily looked up sharply. "Wait, 2 weeks? They planned this long before they showed up at the house." The detective nodded grimly. "Yes, very likely." My stomach twisted. "They tried to set me up financially? And when that didn't work fast enough, they broke into the house." "Correct," he said. "They had 2 strategies. The break-in was the backup plan." Emily whispered, "They were going to ruin you, completely ruin you." I didn't respond. I couldn't, because the detective wasn't finished. "These overseas transfers," he continued slowly, "are going to draw scrutiny. The amounts, the speed, the timing, it all points to intentional fraud." Emily swallowed. "What happens now?" He looked at her first, then at me. His expression softened slightly, but his voice remained steady. "There will be more charges, possibly much more serious ones." The words floated in the air like falling glass. Emily started trembling again. "Dad's gonna lose everything." "He already lost everything the moment he started stealing," I muttered. The detective slid the paper toward me. "We'll need a full statement from you tonight. And after that, the Federal Financial Crimes Task Force will likely reach out." Zoe rubbed my back, grounding me. "You're not alone in this, not for 1 second." I nodded, breathing deeply. "This doesn't break me," I said quietly. "Not anymore." 3 hours later, after giving my statement, I stepped out of the police station into the cold night air. Zoe and Emily stayed close, each on one side of me. The world felt quieter than usual, like everything inside me had shifted. Emily's voice finally broke the silence. "I'm sorry," she said, eyes glassy. "For what? For being part of it. For not protecting you. For staying blind when I should have seen what was happening. For letting them use you. For letting myself get used too." I swallowed hard. "Emily, you were a kid too." She shook her head. "No, I was selfish.
I thought they favored me because I deserved it. I never questioned why they didn't treat you the same. I never asked why they expected everything from you but nothing from me. I didn't answer, because anything I said would have softened the truth, and she didn't need softening. She needed clarity. Emily's voice cracked. I want to be better. I want us to be real sisters, not whatever we were before. Zoe squeezed my shoulder. You don't have to decide anything right now. But I knew my answer. I looked at Emily. I'm not closing the door on us, but I need time. And you need to prove with actions, not apologies, that you'll stand beside me, not behind them. Emily nodded, tears slipping quietly down her face. I will. I promise. We drove back to Zoe's house, my house technically, because after everything, that place felt like safety. Warm lights, soft blankets, tea that tasted like comfort, a space where fear didn't echo. Zoe made a bed for Emily on the couch. I found myself standing in the doorway of the guest room, staring at the wall for a long time. My phone buzzed in my hand. Unknown number. For a moment, dread prickled down my spine, but I answered anyway. A low, shaky voice came through the speaker. Sarah? My blood froze. It was my father. He whispered, I get one call, and I'm using it on you. I didn't speak. He continued, voice trembling but urgent. You need to listen carefully. Your mother, she lied. She lied to all of us, even to me. You don't know what she's really done. My breath caught. What are you talking about? I asked. He inhaled sharply, panic leaking into every syllable. She's the one who's been moving the money. She's the one who opened the accounts. She's the one who owes the $150,000. Silence. Cold, heavy silence. Then, you're in danger, Sarah. All of us are. You don't understand who she's been working with. My heart slammed against my ribs. Dad, I whispered, who is she working with? Static crackled. His voice dropped to a terrified whisper. She's not doing this alone. There's someone else. Someone she's been meeting in secret. Someone who... The line cut dead. I stared at the phone, pulse racing. Zoe walked into the hallway. Sarah? What happened? I looked at her, words barely forming. My mom isn't just committing fraud. Zoe's eyes widened. Then what? I swallowed. She's working with someone dangerous.
I didn't sleep, not even for a minute. My father's final words replayed in my head like a broken record. She's not doing this alone. There's someone else, someone dangerous. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, the room dark except for the faint glow of the hallway light. Zoe slept beside me, or tried to, but every time I shifted, she reached out, brushing her hand against my arm as if checking I was still there. Around 4:17 a.m., I finally sat up. Zoe murmured, You okay? I know, whispered. And honestly, I don't think things are even close to being over. She pushed herself up, hair messy, face soft with sleep, but eyes instantly alert. Was it your dad's call? I nodded. He said my mom owes the money, not Emily, not him. Her. Zoe frowned deeply. But why? How? Nothing about that makes sense. Dad said she's been meeting someone. Someone she's working with, Zoe rubbed her face. Working with? Like a loan shark? A criminal? A partner? A boyfriend. The idea of my mother having a secret partner, romantic or criminal, made my stomach twist. I don't know, I whispered. The call cut out before he could finish. Zoe exhaled slowly, the way she did when she was bracing herself. We need to tell the detective. I will, but I need answers first. Real ones. At 7 a.m., Emily walked into the kitchen with swollen eyes. She'd clearly been crying on and off all night. Zoe handed her a mug of tea. Drink. You'll need it. Emily wrapped both hands around it. I called the hospital, she said quietly. Dad's still in custody. Mom's refusing to talk. Refusing? I asked. Emily nodded miserably. She keeps saying, everything I did was for this family. And then she shuts down. Zoe scoffed. Destroying your daughter's living room is a fun new definition of family. Emily flinched. Sorry, not at you. At them. Emily sank onto a stool.
Sarah, Mom has always been strict, controlling, but never like this. Never violent. Never criminal. She's slipping. No, not slipping. Hiding. Emily swallowed. Hiding what? I hesitated. What Dad said, I finally whispered. He told me Mom owes the $150,000. Not you, not him, her. Emily went pale. What? But she told me she lied, I said gently, to all of us. Emily shook her head, eyes welling again. Why would she involve me? Why drag me into it? To manipulate me, I said automatically. They knew I wouldn't help them unless someone was in danger. Someone helpless. Someone I cared about. Emily's voice cracked. So they used me. Yeah, they did. Emily covered her mouth with her hands, shoulders shaking. Zoe rested a hand on her back. You're safe now, and we're going to figure this out. But Emily looked up with fear in her eyes. No, she said hoarsely. Not yet. What do you mean? I asked. She hesitated, then reached into her bag. My stomach dropped. She pulled out a folded piece of paper. No, a receipt. A hotel receipt, dated 11 days ago. Location, a motel 2 towns over. Charges, 2 nights, 2 guests. Paid by? My mother's credit card. My heart lurched. 2 guests. Emily, I whispered. Who was she staying with? Emily's eyes filled again. I don't know, but when I confronted her last week, she said, what I'm doing is bigger than you think, and then she told me to mind my own business. Zoe grabbed the paper. This is bad. Really bad. Emily's voice dropped to a whisper. There's more. She pulled out another paper. A printed email. I felt the blood drain from my face. It was from a burner address. Let's call it secondaccountant@protomail.com. Subject. Transfer schedule confirmed, no mistakes this time. And the first line made my throat dry. Dorothy, your share of the last transfer has been delivered. The next phase begins as soon as we secure your daughter's assets. Zoe read it out loud and then stared at us. Your mother isn't just involved, she's coordinating. Emily covered her face. I found it on her laptop. I shouldn't have looked, but I had this awful feeling. She locked her door every night. She never used to do that. I sank into a chair. This isn't about debt or bills or desperation, Zoe nodded. This is a criminal operation. Your parents didn't just break into your house because they were angry. She paused, her voice lowering. They did it because your mom needed access to something she thought you were hiding. I stiffened. Like what? Zoe pointed to the line in the email. As soon as we secure your daughter's assets. The room felt suddenly colder. Emily whispered, Sarah, what assets could they mean? You don't have much money. The house isn't even in your name anymore. I froze. Because in that moment, something clicked. Something terrifying. Something I hadn't told anyone, not even Zoe, because it didn't feel important before. But now, my entire body went rigid. Zoe noticed immediately. Sarah, what? I grabbed the edge of the table. My grandmother, I said quietly, before she died, she left me something. Not money, not property, something else. Emily leaned in. What did she leave you? I swallowed hard. A safe deposit key. Zoe blinked. A key? To what? I don't know, I whispered. Grandma said, when the time comes, you'll know why you need it. And then she died 3 days later. Emily's eyes widened in horror. Sarah, do Mom and Dad know about it? Yes, I said. They know. They tried to convince me to give it to them after the funeral. Zoe grabbed my arm. Where's the key now? I closed my eyes. In my old bedroom. At the original house. The destroyed house. The one they tore apart with baseball bats. Emily gasped. Sarah, what if that's what they were looking for? My pulse pounded in my ears. Zoe stood up fast. We need to get that key now before they, or whoever your mom is working with, try again. I nodded, adrenaline flooding my veins. But Emily wasn't looking at me. She was staring out the front window, face pale, voice trembling. Zoe? Sarah? Someone's outside. Zoe whipped around. I followed her gaze. A dark car sat parked across the street, engine running, windows tinted, and even from inside the house, I could tell someone was watching us.
The moment I saw the dark car idling across the street, I stopped breathing. Not because I recognized it, I didn't, but because of the way it sat there, unmoving, engine humming, windows tinted so black I couldn't see a silhouette. It was the kind of car people used when they didn't want to be identified. Zoe was already stepping toward the window. "Don't," I whispered sharply, grabbing her arm. "If they see movement, they'll know we're here." Emily backed away until she hit the counter. Is it them?" Her voice trembled so hard the words barely came out. "I don't know, but whoever it is didn't park there by accident." We stood frozen for a full minute. The engine purred. The exhaust puffed in slow, steady breaths. Then, the hairs on the back of my neck rose, because suddenly, the driver's side window rolled down just a few inches. Not fully, just enough for whoever was inside to see us more clearly. Zoe whispered, "Okay. Nope, not doing this." She stepped back, grabbing her phone. "I'm calling Detective Carson." Before she could dial, the car's headlights flashed. One long blink, then two short ones, like it was signaling. "What does that mean?" Emily whispered. "I don't know, but they're not leaving." Zoe frowned. "Carson told you to call if anything suspicious happened. This definitely counts." Just as she tapped the detective's name, the car suddenly pulled forward. Slow. Deliberate. It rolled down the street like a predator choosing not to attack just yet. And then it turned the corner and disappeared. For several seconds, none of us moved. Finally, Zoe exhaled shakily. "That's it. I'm calling him anyway." She hit call. Detective Carson arrived 20 minutes later, not even trying to hide his irritation, but it wasn't aimed at us. "Describe the car again," he said, scribbling on his pad. "Black sedan. Older model. Tinted windows." He nodded tightly. "Matches the description of a vehicle connected to 2 financial extortion cases we're investigating." My stomach dropped. "Extortion?" Carson nodded again. "People who owe a lot of money, people who borrow from the wrong crowd, sometimes get visits. Subtle ones at first. Surveillance. Intimidation. A reminder they're not alone." Emily paled. "So, that car could be connected to whoever your mother is meeting with, or it could be someone higher up the chain." Zoe crossed her arms. "Great. So, we're on some criminal's watch list now?" Carson didn't deny it. Instead, he closed his notebook and looked directly at me. "You need to tell me everything. No more holding back. What exactly did your grandmother leave you?" I hesitated, because part of me still felt like the safe deposit key was nothing more than an old woman's sentimental gesture. But another part, the part that watched a dark car stalk my house at dawn, suddenly knew better. I said quietly, "She left me a key to a safe deposit box at First Federal Bank." Carson's brows lifted. "Do you know what's inside?" "No, I've never opened it. Grandma said I'd know when I needed it." Carson scribbled notes. "Did your parents know about the key?" "Yes." "Did they ever try to take it?" "Yes," I admitted. "Right after the funeral." Zoe suddenly stiffened. "Detective, what if Sarah's mother is trying to get something inside that box? Something she thinks will solve her debt?" Carson nodded grimly. That's exactly what I'm thinking. Emily whispered, But what could it be? Money? Documents? Something valuable? Carson closed his notebook with a soft click. There's only one way to find out. I blinked. You want me to open it? Not alone. You'll come to the station first, we'll coordinate officers, then we'll access the box. If your parents or their associates want whatever's in there, we need to see it before they do. Emily trembled. Detective, is my mom in danger? Carson studied her expression for a moment before answering. Your mother is involved with dangerous people. Whether she's a victim or a participant, that's what we're trying to determine. Emily wiped her eyes. I just want her to stop spiraling. Carson sighed. I know. He turned to me. Pack a bag, he said firmly. You're not staying here tonight. It isn't safe. Zoe stepped forward. She can stay with me. We've got room. Carson nodded. Good. I'll file a surveillance request for the property. He paused. Then his tone changed. Lower. Colder. And Sarah, don't go anywhere alone. Not even to the mailbox. Understand? I swallowed hard. Yes. After Carson left, Zoe and I helped Emily gather her things. I want to come with you. To the bank. Zoe shook her head gently. It might not be safe. Emily hugged herself. I know, but if Mom's involved, I need to know the truth. I can't hide anymore. I squeezed her hand. You can come. We'll figure it out together. We finished packing. Zoe loaded the bags. Emily double-checked the locks. And for a moment, I let myself breathe. But just as we stepped outside, a soft clicking sound echoed across the yard. Zoe froze. Did you hear that? I turned toward the source of the noise. My blood went cold. Lying on the ground by the mailbox was a small object. Shiny. Metal. I walked toward it slowly, dread sinking deeper with every step. A key. No, not the key. A different one. Attached to a torn slip of paper. I picked it up with trembling fingers. 3 words were scrawled in jagged handwriting. We need yours. Emily gasped. Zoe grabbed my arm. And I realized whoever left that message had been close enough to touch my mailbox, close enough to watch me, close enough to take the key if they thought they could. And they weren't done. Not even close.
I stared at the small metal key in my palm, the cold of it seeping straight into my bones. 3 shaky, jagged words stared back up at me from the torn scrap of paper. We need yours. My throat tightened. Zoe whispered, Sarah, put it down. Put it down now. It's just a key, Emily said weakly. Zoe shook her head. No, it's a message, and not the friendly kind. I folded the note closed so I wouldn't have to look at it anymore. This means they were here, on my property, minutes ago. Emily let out a small sob. Why are they doing this? Zoe stepped closer, lowering her voice. Because they think you have something they need, something in that safe deposit box. I swallowed hard. We need to get out of here. We piled into Zoe's car, locking the doors with stiff fingers. Emily kept looking behind us, jumping at every passing vehicle. I sat in the front seat with the note tucked into my jacket. Zoe started the engine. First stop is the police station, she said. Carson needs to see this right away. Yeah, I whispered, before whoever left that key comes back. As we drove through the neighborhood, I couldn't stop scanning every driveway, every quiet street, every parked car.
Every shadow felt too still. Every person felt like a watcher. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. When we finally reached the police station, I all but ran inside. Detective Carson came out of his office the second he saw my face. "What happened?" he demanded. I handed him the note and the key. His jaw tightened. "They were on your property?" "Yes," I said, "and they left this at my mailbox." Carson cursed under his breath, something I'd never heard him do in all the time I'd known him. "This escalates things. This is now a direct threat, not just intimidation." Emily sat down hard in one of the waiting chairs. "Detective, do you think my mom is part of this? Really part of this?" Carson didn't answer right away. Finally, he said quietly, "I think your mother is deeper into something than she realized, and I think the people she's dealing with are not used to the word no." Zoe folded her arms tightly. "So what now?" Carson held up the note. "Now, we go to the bank." My heart thudded. "Today?" "Right now," he said, "before someone else gets there first." The drive to the bank felt like a countdown. Every time a car switched lanes behind us, I tensed. Every time we hit a red light, Zoe muttered, come on," under her breath. Emily clutched her phone like she expected bad news at any moment. Carson drove ahead of us in his unmarked car, phone pressed to his ear, directing officers and giving instructions I couldn't hear. When we finally pulled into the First Federal parking lot, my mouth went dry. 2 patrol cars were already parked out front. Carson met us at the door. "You ready?" he asked me. I didn't feel ready. Not even close. But I nodded anyway. "Let's finish this." The bank manager, a petite woman named Miss Gallagher, led us to a private room behind the vaults. "You'll need your key," she said gently. My hand trembled as I pulled it from my pocket. She inserted her master key. I inserted mine. There was a heavy click. The box slid forward with a soft metallic scrape. I looked at Carson. He nodded. "Go ahead." I took a shaky breath and opened the lid. Inside was a small black notebook. Nothing else. Not money, not jewelry, not documents. A notebook. I frowned. "What is this? My grandmother never mentioned." Then I flipped it open, and my blood turned to ice. The pages were filled with numbers, dates, deposits, withdrawals, totals that climbed into the hundreds of thousands. And at the top of every page, my mother's full name. Emily gasped loudly, hand flying to her mouth. Zoe whispered, "Holy!" But that wasn't the worst part. At the bottom of the page, written in my grandmother's elegant handwriting, was a sentence. "Dorothy is stealing money from the church accounts. Keep this safe." I stared at the ink until it blurred. Carson leaned over my shoulder, jaw clenched. This is evidence. Serious evidence. Emily shook her head violently. No, Mom would never." But she didn't sound like she believed her own words. "Your grandmother knew," Carson said quietly. "She documented everything." I turned another page. My mother's name again. Another page. More numbers. Another. Years of stolen money. Church donations, community funds, charity collections. Emily looked like she might collapse. She said she was buying groceries for sick families, helping pay bills, tithing extra. She was pocketing it. This is embezzlement. Felony level. My stomach churned. My grandmother hadn't given me a sentimental keepsake. She'd given me a weapon. One my mother desperately wanted back. Carson straightened. "You are not going home. None of you. We're putting you under temporary protective watch." Emily broke down sobbing. Zoe wrapped her arm around her tightly. "It's not your fault." I clutched the notebook to my chest. But then, a bank employee burst into the room, breathless. "Detective Carson, there's a situation at the front entrance." Carson stiffened. "What kind of situation?" "A woman. She's screaming your name, saying you have something that belongs to her. She's refusing to leave. Emily's eyes widened. Oh God, she whispered, it's Mom. Carson's expression hardened. Stay here, do not move. But as he rushed out, I couldn't shake the feeling burning in my gut. My mother wasn't here for an explanation. She wasn't here to apologize. She was here to fight, and she would destroy anything or anyone between her and the notebook.
The moment Detective Carson stepped into the hallway, we could hear her. My mother. Her voice slicing through the bank like broken glass. Where is she? Where is my daughter? You can't keep her from me. That notebook is mine. Emily flinched so hard she nearly fell off her chair. Zoe grabbed her shoulders and held her steady. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Hearing her voice again, raw, furious, desperate, felt like being shoved backward in time. I was suddenly 5 years old again, standing at the top of the stairs, hearing her scream at my dad about bills and responsibilities and how everything was always someone else's fault. Except this time, it was my fault. And I had proof of what she'd done. Emily whispered, Sarah, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. I reached over and squeezed her hand. I know. None of this is on you. But she didn't stop crying. The yelling got louder. Security was trying to calm her down, but my mother wasn't listening. I heard the thud of her fist hitting the counter, the sound of her demanding to talk to me specifically. Detective Carson's voice boomed. Dorothy, you need to step away from the counter. This is not the place for... I want my daughter! A door slammed. A chair toppled over. Emily buried her face in her hands. Zoe whispered, if she breaks something in here, that's a federal offense on federal property. I nodded slowly, pulse pounding. She doesn't care. Not anymore. The door to the vault room burst open. Carson strode in, jaw tight. You three, come with me, now. My stomach twisted. Is she still out there? Yes, he said, and she's demanding you come talk to her. Alone. Zoe snorted. Not happening. Carson shook his head. Obviously not. But I need you out of this building before she gets any more unstable. Backup is on the way. Emily whispered, please tell me she didn't hurt anyone. Carson hesitated just a moment. She shoved a security guard when he asked her to step back. Emily let out a soft cry. We followed Carson through the back hallway of the bank, our footsteps echoing on the polished tiles. He led us to a side exit used for armored vehicle deliveries. Stay behind me, he ordered. I clutched the notebook so tightly my fingers ached. The second the door opened, cold wind slapped me across the face, but that shock was nothing compared to what I saw next. My mother stood at the far corner of the parking lot. Not alone. 2 men flanked her. The same 2 men from my yard. The ones in the black SUV. One leaned against the car, arms crossed. The other held something in his hand. A phone? A radio? I couldn't tell, but the moment he saw us, he straightened. Carson cursed. This just got worse. Emily froze beside me. Mom, what are you doing? But Dorothy wasn't looking at Emily. She was looking at me. Her eyes wild, red-rimmed, almost unhinged. She pointed straight at the notebook clutched to my chest. That belongs to me. Carson strode forward. Dorothy, you need to turn around and place your hands where I can see. I am talking to my daughter, she screamed. The 2 men started walking towards us, slow, casual, like predators. Carson pulled us behind him, hand at his holster. Get back inside, now, go. But before we could move, Dorothy lurched forward, tears streaming down her face. "Sarah, please, if you give them what they want, they'll leave me alone. They'll forgive the debt." My heart cracked. "Debt?" I whispered. "Mom, how much did you take?" Her chin trembled. "All of it." Emily gasped. "Mom, how much?" Dorothy finally whispered it, voice breaking. 400,000. I staggered backward. Zoe grabbed my arm. Emily looked like someone had punched the air from her lungs. "Mom, what did you do?" "I had no choice," Dorothy sobbed. "They said I could pay it back. They said as long as I kept quiet, no one would know. But then your grandmother found out, and she threatened to expose me." "So you stole from the church?" I said quietly. Dorothy's face twisted. "I had no choice." "You had every choice. You just picked the one that hurt everybody else." One of the men stepped forward. "We're not here for drama. Give us the book." Carson snapped. "Sir, step back." The man smirked. "Or what? Shoot me in a bank parking lot?" The other man reached into his coat. Carson drew. "Hands where I can see them." Everything exploded at once. Shouting, footsteps, the shriek of approaching sirens. The man froze with his hand halfway into his coat as 3 squad cars tore into the parking lot, lights flashing. Officers swarmed. "Drop whatever's in your hand! On the ground!" The 2 men raised their arms slowly. Carson motioned for us to move. We backed up towards the wall as officers closed in, cuffing the men and searching their pockets. That's when I saw her. My mother. She wasn't yelling anymore. She wasn't fighting. She just collapsed to her knees on the cold pavement, hands over her face, shaking. Emily stared at her with tears streaming down her cheeks. "Mom!" Dorothy whispered hoarsely. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know what else to do." Carson approached her carefully. "Dorothy Thompson, you're under arrest for embezzlement, fraud, conspiracy, and trespassing." She didn't resist. She didn't argue. She just kept sobbing as officers lifted her to her feet and read her rights. Emily turned away, crying into Zoe's shoulder. I closed my eyes. The weight of the notebook in my hands felt heavier than ever. All of this had been brewing for years, maybe decades, and it was finally over. Finally. Hours later, after statements and paperwork and a blur of questions, we were released. Carson walked us to the parking lot. "You'll be contacted about court dates, but for now, you're safe." Emily wiped her eyes. "Thank you." Zoe nodded. "Seriously, thank you." Carson turned to me. "Your grandmother left that notebook with you for a reason. She trusted you to do the right thing. You did." I exhaled shakily. "It just doesn't feel good." "It won't, but it's justice." We drove home in silence. For the first time in years, the air felt still, peaceful. I didn't unlock the door to my house immediately. I just stood on the porch looking at the place that had become mine. Really mine. Built on my hard work, my sacrifices, my life. Zoe squeezed my shoulder. "You okay?" I nodded slowly. "Yeah, I think I finally am." Emily moved in with a friend. Zoe stayed with me for a week, just to be safe. The church board pressed charges. The loan sharks took their jail time quietly. And my mother? She called me once from the detention center to apologize, to cry, to say she didn't expect forgiveness and I didn't offer it. But I did tell her I hope she would get better. Not for me.
Not anymore. For Emily. And for herself. The notebook sits in a police evidence locker now, but sometimes I still feel its weight in my hands, a reminder of the truth. Family can break you, but they can't own you. Not anymore. Not ever again.